Your child just doesn't seem to be able to concentrate or focus for long. Wow. He or she is the one that's always daydreaming, looking out the window instead of concentrating. And when you talk to them, if they're playing a computer game, watching a video, they seem deaf, as if they can't take it in. Wow. I just told you the tea was ready. You didn't hear me. And it's the same child who usually starts lots of things but doesn't finish many. In fact, finishing is a real problem for them. What's this all about? What's the root cause? Well, the first thing you've got to know is that people who daydream, people who have very low intelligence, are generally above average intelligence, highly intelligent. So what's going on? They've got this fire hose of ideas coming out sometimes, and so they're preoccupied with those. They need lots of stimulation. The trouble is, some kids get expelled from school because they can't focus, and often there's the really intelligent ones. You look at Google those who've had huge success despite being school dropouts, and you find some amazing people there. Lots of the billionaires are there, and often these are folk that have got such brilliant ideas but aren't able to focus. So they don't score well in exams, but boy do they score well in life. So some get huge success, but for everyone that gets huge success, some struggle. In fact, for everyone, lots struggle. So it's a big gamble. So it's not an issue you can just hope they're going to overcome and be hugely successful. Make sure you address it as best you can. But the fact is that often those who struggled in school with focus do far better in life than those at top of the class. So I just want to put it in balance. Don't take a risk on their future, but do bear in mind they've probably got a lot of intelligence. So it's our job to find that God-given intelligence. Of course, teachers have to teach to average intelligence. They can't just teach to the brightest kids in the class. So if your child's struggling with concentration because he or she is actually bright and they need lots of stretching and stimulation, the teacher is going to be boring to them, because in some subjects they're going to be way ahead and they get it within minutes, whilst the rest of the class take another hour's lesson to take it in. All of those things can contribute to your child becoming disillusioned with the whole school process. The probability is that they've got a huge brain with huge brain activity, and that fire hydrant is filling them with new ideas, and they need to be stimulated in a way that gives them instant gratification. So they don't want to be bored, and they find lots of things boring. So make sure the teacher understands that, and you may need to go and see the teacher just to make sure that he or she understands your child needs more stimulation. So it's not a choice your child is making to lose focus. It's a mental condition. And if they're bright, they need lots of stimulation. And you may well find that they'll have underdevelopment in some basic everyday skills. So you may get to the point where you realize that the very functioning of their executive part of the brain here, which makes all the decisions, is in fact not yet fully able to focus on what they need to be doing. So the weakness is going to be here. It's in the executive part of the brain, because their focus is not yet itself an automatized process. Now, you may well find that dad or mum is often highly creative or very bright themselves, and so they've inherited intelligence genes. I don't generally find children inheriting bad genes. I find much more of them inheriting intelligence genes, and with that, you've got this fire hydrant situation. So what can you do about it? Well, there's a few important things. There's a lot of research coming out about children that use headphones a lot, to do a lot of gaming, computer activity. If you do too much, it can affect all sorts of parts of the brain. For headphones, for instance, especially if they're into specific types of music, if they bombard their ears for several hours a day with specific types of music, the brain gets used to resonating with that, and it only tends to learn and develop around those specific frequencies and tones, which means they're limiting their ability to take in all sorts of tones and information and learn. So there's some really interesting research just coming out about that. So I would suggest you avoid them using headphones for too many hours a day. Likewise, computer games. If they're sitting there on a computer game, there's no vestibular, that's balance organ stimulation, and they're doing a lot of thinking without the balance organ, they aren't actually going to learn there. So computer games don't tend to increase learning ability. They can stimulate the circuitry that's already there, but they won't create new one. And you want your child to create new one. So get them to do plenty of exercise. Use bribes or whatever you need to, but get them doing plenty of exercise. But fundamentally, you must understand they're not choosing to not focus. And alongside that, look for their genius. Find the area where they are genius and really encourage that underlying creativity, whatever it is. Look for it. If it's outside the zone of what school looks after, give them another activity alongside their schoolwork so they've got an outlet for that genius. Make sure they get plenty of intellectual stimulation too. So all of the discussions that they need to have, if they're bright, make sure you talk to them at that level and talk to them at an adult level and take their learning on. But discuss ways with the teacher of engaging with them and stretching with them that respects their underlying ability. My maths teacher was like that. I'll never forget him. His name was Andy Morgan. And he taught me when I was about 13, and he inspired me. He saw that I'd got a spark of something, and he found ways of giving me work that was ahead of most of the rest of the class. That was the one subject I was really good at. There was others I wasn't so good at. But he found that, and he inspired me. So my maths leapt forward because he recognized that I needed some extra stimulation. He gave it to me, and I loved maths whenever he was teaching me. That changed later on. The teachers I had taught to the average in the class, and I fell behind. It was a chance for me to really shine in maths, and I did for that couple of years. So getting the teacher to understand the learning style, the degree of intelligence, the type of inspiration that your child needs is critical. So study it, think about it, and go to the teacher and discuss it, and make sure they respond by doing that. Teachers have got a responsibility, not just to get information across to teach. They've got a responsibility to inspire children to learn. And often they forget that. I'm a big fan of teachers, huge fan of them, and many of them do that brilliantly. Make sure your child has got one that does. Make sure that you reduce or eliminate any distractions as far as you can when they should be doing their schoolwork. And sometimes that means sitting at the front of the class, because then they haven't got other children to watch and distract and so on. So often focus in bursts is also good. You know, sometimes these children, they work better at 5 or 10 minute bursts than in having 5 or 10 minutes off. But you need to structure that. So if a child can't concentrate for 20 minutes, get them to do 10 minutes of good work and then do something else for 5. There's research showing that is hugely effective too for such children. So let's use common sense. Don't force them to do what everyone else does. Get them to do what is good for them. So you may well have a genius, and if there are signs of that, that's great news. Make sure that you do everything to find that genius. Finding it is actually down to you now for these next few years until their schooling is over. I hope this helps. I hope that gives you hope. And I look forward to working with you in the future. All the best.